Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with yet another The Tim May Show. Yeah, that's capital THE, but who's paying attention to that? Bottom line is, you ever have one of those days when you're going off to run an errand, to the grocery store or the big box store, and you get there with one thing in mind you got to get, and then you walk out with something totally different. In fact, it kind of changes your perspective to a certain extent. But I walked into the latest Ohio State media availability with the revamped, let's put it that revamped football coaching staff done by Ryan Day, and the idea was to go in and do something today on Matt Patricia, the new defensive coordinator, of New England Patriots fame and maybe Detroit Lions head coaching infamy, but he's resurfaced again in football coaching as the new defensive coordinator for Ohio State. Ryan Day thought long and hard before bringing in Matt Patricia, who, in my opinion, that was a hell of a hire. You can hear the Super Bowl rings jingling in his pocket as he walks almost. I mean, he has that kind of presence to him. And, I think he's been a hit so far based on people we've talked to. Um, uh, Ryan Day really likes him, really likes what he's all about, the intelligence he brings and the open mindedness he brings to the position, the collaboration, making it a collaborative effort, not a dictatorship. He likes all that about Matt Patricia because, he wants everybody on a staff to work together. You've got a head coach of the defense in Matt Patricia, but you've got Larry Johnson sitting there and James Laurinaitis, uh, and then Tim Walton and Matt Guerreri in the defensive secondary, and especially Tim Walton, the co-defensive coordinator, a veteran who's been around, who's been a defensive coordinator of the National Football League for a couple of teams, and he's been at Ohio State for the last several years, and he's really, really heightened his reputation, especially this past season when Ohio State, he was part of helping put together under Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator, part of helping put together the number one defense, number one total defense, and number one scoring defense in the country when it really mattered, especially in the college football playoff, because Ohio State ramrodded itself to a 4-0 run and its second national championship in the last 11 years. But what's interesting about the new Ohio State coaching staff that, it struck me even before I got to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, but it struck me definitely while I was a part of a few people talking to this man and then finally talking to him by myself. Larry Johnson's the only guy on this current Ohio State coaching staff who's been around for both of the national championships of recent memory. I'm talking about 2014 and 2024. Uh, Urban Meyer hired him from away from Penn State in 2014, and Larry had been a long time assistant at Penn State, but was passed over really in my opinion, even from consideration about being its next head coach after some of the scandal that hit it at Penn State. And Larry's looking for a new start, and he got it at Ohio State. To this day, we think he's 73 years old, but to this day, we're not sure because I've yet to find a true birth date for Larry Johnson. I do know he was playing college football in the early 70s. So you got that, you got at least have that little barometer to go by. But Larry Johnson, considered the GOAT, the greatest of all time, by most of the players who played for him, not the least of whom was Jack Sawyer from this past season and JT Tuimoloau, two five-star highly sought recruits who came in and finally blossomed into the powerhouse on the defensive end spots that helped carry Ohio State to the 2024 national championship. And who can't forget? I mean, who could ever forget Jack Sawyer scoop and score? Really, it was catch and score off a fumble from Quinn Ewers, which definitely sealed the deal for Ohio State in the semifinal Cotton Bowl win over Texas. And the funny thing about when I asked Larry Johnson about that today, you'll hear it in the interview, but he said, I've cried every time I've looked at that on videotape because what a moment. But what a fruition to a 4-year career for Jack Sawyer and really a great example of what those four defensive linemen across the board, Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton in the middle of that. I mean, uh, all four of those guys just in the playoffs turned it up another notch. I think anyone could see that. And interestingly, those guys are all gone now. They're all headed to the National Football League. And Larry Johnson talked about the pride in watching those guys work out a little bit at the combine last week in Indianapolis. And of course, they'll be having their pro day at Ohio State at the end of this month. But the bottom line is Larry Johnson faces one of the more challenging tasks, I guess is the best way of putting it, of totally rebuilding his unit from a starter standpoint, and he's relishing it. He's looking forward to it. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, he doesn't have retirement. He doesn't have retirement in mind. He reiterated that as we got to talk to him on Friday of this week. And when you look at him, you know, his big line is he's going to coach until God tells me to stop. So, you know, that's a pretty strong statement there. But when you look at him, as he points out to me when I talk to him individually, he's down 42 pounds. I mean, he looks like he doesn't look like a 73 or 72 or 74-year-old man, whatever he is, allegedly 73 years old. He looks like he's in the best shape he's been in decades. And, you know, it'll do, you know, working out and having a purpose will do that for a man as he gets older. And he's, like he said, he don't want to be sitting in a chair right now watching TV and putting those pounds back on. He wants to be coaching. So he's really looking forward to it. And he also, in my conversation with him, I have two snippets here. One, which was started by Doug LeMaurice, Knights of the North, Kings of the North podcast, who jumped in and I followed up with on the, you know, ridiculous, stupid, ill-founded, and in my opinion, a little bit malicious rumor scuttlebutt that started in the middle of the season that Larry Johnson never got along with Jim Knowles, you know, who was brought in from Oklahoma State in 2022 as a new defensive coordinator with a 3-2-5 concept. 4-2-5 concept is really what it was, but it was really like a 3-3 concept, or with the use of a jack player, as you want to call it, a Leo player who would be a quasi defensive end, quasi linebacker, quasi drop into coverage kind of guy. That they squabbled over that and never got over it and stuff, and that they finally had a meeting of the minds at some point, maybe this season, when things didn't go so great against Oregon, and they settled that all out. Well, Larry Johnson refuted that wholeheartedly. As a matter of fact, you know, he's long held a little bit of a contempt for whoever started that rumor. But like he points out in our conversation, it's not his place to refute other people's wrong information. And we all know it got started by some people who wanted to see, for whatever reason, Larry Johnson run off from this Ohio State football coaching staff, either by being fired or retired. And obviously, Ryan Day loves Larry Johnson, you know, and I think that's obvious. He's the assistant head coach, for goodness sakes. Larry Johnson is, and his players love him. And so, what more do you want out of a coach, especially when you've run off and won a national championship again? I talked about Matt Patricia and those Super Bowl rings that are jingling in his pocket. Well, Larry Johnson's the only coach on the Ohio State coaching staff who has two of those from Ohio State, and he has no intention of leaving anytime soon. So, you know, it's very interesting, this conversation, because he kind of put things in perspective, and especially near the end of just my one-on-one with him at the end of this video, when he brings up about, you know, basically adhering to God's will, seeing things come to fruition for this football team, a lot of which he thought was God's will. You know, I mean, I don't think God really cares who wins football games, but God gives everyone a belief in God, gives everyone something to lean on when times get tough. And hey, the times ever get tougher than in the aftermath of Ohio State losing for the fourth straight time to Michigan on November the 30th. But as we've talked about many times, December the 1st, the players and Ryan Day had a face-to-face meeting followed by a players-only meeting, and instead of walking out of there like a hand grenade, they walked out of there in solidarity. And one of the things they really leaned on was the spiritual component of the 2024 team, which clearly paid dividends. And Larry said he had never seen that strong a spiritual component on a team, never in his career until this past season. Whether it can carry over to this season remains to be seen. But Larry Johnson is going to be part and parcel to trying to see that it does. So without further ado, let's get to first the in progress conversation, which was, like I said, was started by Doug Maurice of Kings of the North podcast, which is excellent listening. And I follow up in that, and then I get Larry one-on-one, which is rare these days. I get Larry one-on-one just to talk about a few of the things, a few of the challenges, etc., that he faces now with basically bringing along 4 new starters, but also how he's looking forward. He's already working with him. How he's very much enjoyed and looking forward to working more with Matt Patricia, the new defensive coordinator at Ohio State. So without further ado, let's get to the video.
His style of defense and your style of defense did not exactly mesh.
No, never.
Why do you think we think that?
Because you guys think he's a 3-4. You guys looked at his system at Oklahoma and thought that way he's going to bring the jack thing here. You know what I mean? That's what you thought, right? And so when you looked at that, everybody was looking for a 3-4 defense.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, we have all these 4-3 guys here. And so you have to change the way you recruit. You're going to change the defense, the scheme set, right? And I think we tried Jack Sawyer demonstration to do it, right? And then as the season went on and teams were playing offensively, you know what I mean? It was predicated to more having 4 guys on the field and changing up. So it never was like I don't chase stories and lies out there because nobody's asking me this question here first. But Jim and I had a really great conversation about what we were doing. There was never a moment where we were, hey, I don't want the 3-4. There was never that. It was like, what's the best fit for our players and how can we get them to compete? And that was always the conversation with us, and to this day. And the story was made up about there's conflict. There was no conflict. Maybe because I said, well, I don't know about the jack. I don't know at that time we don't know what we're going to do with the jack. But I knew that we felt Jack Sawyer was a decision between coach and I that, let's get Jack Sawyer back to defensive end. And that's when, let's go to another jack position guy to do it. But we never did it again. We never got back to a full defense because it changed what you do. No doubt, question about it. It's a different scheme, a different thing we do, and you got to live by it. In the Big Ten offense, man, there's so many different ways, formations. You can get that guy caught in the alley and trying to play that. So it's tough.
How much did it bother you that story? Oh, excuse me. Go ahead. That story was out there. How much did it bother you that the story was out there that you and Knowles weren't seeing eye to eye, etc.? Maybe even fighting.
Here's what I say to you. It doesn't bother me because I know who I am as a man, as a person, right? And so I'm never going to chase lies that people are talking about what I did. I mean, I was amazing. People sent it to me, and I wouldn't refuse to read it because that's not who I am. I mean, Jim and I had a great relationship. It never came down to that. I don't have to ultimate him. It was never that. But the story got created, which is unfair, but it got created somehow with someone on a podcast, I guess trying to get clicks or something. I don't know, man. I don't read that stuff. But no, it didn't bother me because I'm not chasing a line. I know who I am as a person. I speak very high in my character who I am. And I've been in this business a long time. And I don't have to go throw chairs in the room to make my point, right? You know what I mean? I have an opinion. I give that opinion. We agree, walk down the room, what we're going to do, and we go forward. And I think you saw that this season. We played really well as a unit. We played well as a staff. How much testimony do you need?
Yeah, well, that's right. When you think about, especially the way the defense played down the stretch, second half of the year into the playoff, when you think about staff, players, talent, experience coming together, just what's your evaluation of how the Ohio State defense played on the way to a national championship?
I think they play light out. I think they play close as a unit. I thought they had a lot of pride about what they were doing, and they were on a mission. They really were. After the team up North game, you knew that it was going to change, and it did. I mean, it's a proud moment as a coach to see guys play the way they play. I mean, everything came to the top, and that's what you want. At the greatest moment of all, it happened from these guys, and I couldn't be more proud of how they played down the stretch. And every day they came to work. Every day they came to work. Never one moment where they like, hey, coach, no, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I mean, you have to be in the rooms and know in practice and see exactly what's going on. Every day those guys preparing for every game the right way.
That's why you keep doing it.
Larry, whenever a person gets up around my age and your age, everybody keeps talking about retirement, retirement, trying to run you out and stuff. And in many ways, I've never seen you more invigorated or reinvigorated, wherever the word is. I mean, from a you look great physically. Remember, I keep telling everybody I'm stronger now than I was 20 years ago. How would you describe your energy level, whatever you want to call it, for doing this game, for doing this job?
Yeah, I just got so much passion about what I do, right? And you're right. You know, the first thing is take care of your health, and I'm down 42 pounds, and it's what I want to do. I want to be ready to go, and I feel great. I love what I do, and I love young people, and so I can change young people's life. Like, that's important. Just sitting home on the couch and getting fat again and go like, okay, what am I doing, right?
Yeah.
I think this is great. So I'm just blessed and honored that God's given this to be able to do this, man, for a long time.
Yeah, and tell people when you lose that much weight, for example, how much your energy comes back. I mean, can you explain to people why it is important to look after yourself?
You feel better. You sleep better. You do all the things right, man. You just take care of yourself. You know what I mean? And like every year, I kind of find a thing that I do. And one thing I said after the season, I said, Larry, you got to get in great shape. You're going to do this again. You got to be in great shape.
Yeah.
And that's where it started. So I feel great. So good.
You look more like a running backs coach now, or a wide receiver coach. You know what I'm talking about.
I got you.
Sometimes people think you got to look the part, right?
No, I appreciate it.
Hey, real quick, do you embrace this new conversations you're going to have when like a Matt Patricia comes in? There's a guy coming in who's been doing it at a different place. Like you were talking about with us a minute ago in a big group thing. You always want ideas floating around out there. You don't want to be stuck on a 3-4 scheme if in fact you don't have the 3 to play that scheme, et cetera. But to be dealing now with a defensive coordinator who is flexible, for want of another term, throughout his whole career, he's shown that.
Yes.
Well, how does that invigorate a guy? You know what I mean?
It's exciting. First of all, I know Pat. I mean, we've been around. We know each other.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, he's a great guy. He walked in and said, we had a conversation. This is what I do. This is who I am. I'm all in.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell every recruit, and this is great. You're going to love the system way he plays because he's all about the players. And I mean, he says it all the time. I'm about the player, but the player is in the best position to play. I'm all in.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's been really great meetings, really super organized, great personnel about what you want to do, how you want to do it, not afraid to ask the questions, and I think that's cool. He didn't walk in, I got a 3 Super Bowl run, I got it all. He walked in and said, I'm open. Let's put this together. So it's been great.
Gotcha. Hey, last thing. You lose 4. I mean, those guys finally came to fruition. You know, I mean, look back through the years, what a story from. Everybody expects everybody to be Chase Young or Joey Bosa walking in the door. That doesn't always work out that way. But, boy, you lose 4 of the most solid people I've ever met on this team. Forget about their playing ability.
People.
Yeah. So does it make this spring and this year even more interesting for you because you bring along guys? I mean, obviously, Caden and Kenyatta have been around for a while and stuff, but those guys in the middle, go ahead.
It's going to be different, right? Because you had a group of guys you've been 4 years, and you mold these guys to where they were, right? And that's an exciting thing to watch. You go to the combine and watch these guys work out. As a coach, you go, wow, that's what it's all about, right? You feel real good about that. Now, I'm hoping that these guys saw Ty Hamilton, a 3-star player, walk in here and really elevate his game. I'm hoping that they watch how he did this, right? And that's the thing I'm selling to these young guys. It can happen, but you got to have all buy-in. You got to trust the process and go forward. If we can do that, it'll be fun. But it's going to be fun, though. It's a fun challenge, and that's what you do.
All right, my last bonus question. I always have a bonus. When you're watching Jack Sawyer come off the edge, beating supposedly Texas's best tackle, like he was a fourth-string scout team guy, making the hit. So the play, y'all have already clinched it right there, making the play. But then the ball bounces into his gut, and he goes the distance. And everybody's talked about Ryan running down the sideline and stuff, but there had to be something in your heart just, I mean, to watch your guy. I mean, to watch your guy have that moment.
I've cried every time I look at the videotape just to know exactly what it's Jack Sawyer, but also what he did and how he did it. And then all of a sudden the ball bounced completely up to his hands. The man was serious, you know, he had a little bit to do with that. Because that was a perfect ending to a perfect game for a perfect situation. And when I watch that clip, that's all I think about. Like, God, what a blessing to be able to be the guy, local hero, but have the ball bounce to your head. So it had to be the high power just helping him out, you know what I mean? So that's a special play.
You brought it up. I got to follow up with that. This team had a spiritual element to it that I'd never witnessed before this past year.
Never in my career.
How much did that play a role, and how important do you think people see that is going forward?
It didn't play a role, it was a role. I mean, it was part of who we were, part of the DNA. And when you saw every single player in warm-ups take a knee and say a prayer to the Almighty, and then you look at Caleb down the back of the end zone, giving praise to God because he's running out of field for a touchdown. That is real. I mean, I don't think any college team has that grounded spirit that we had as a football team. And I think that's special, right?